Welcome back to Digging Deeper. I'm your host, Dave Onashenko from Clarity Development Advisory. We have Rain and Sowens over here. And today's special guest is Nicholas Rheubottom from IDEA, Infill Development in Edmonton. Can I say advocacy group? What's the term I should be using?
Yeah, I think we're foremost an advocacy group, but we also focus on some things tied to educational initiatives and just kind of also bringing the infill community together. So facilitator of relationships.
Awesome. I like that. Yeah. I like that. One term we use at Clarity is like connector of people and ideas, and so facilitator of relationships. Love the idea. So, Nicholas, you are the new executive director at IDEA. You've been there since January. How has that been going?
Oh, it's been going really well. I feel I have just maybe 1 or 2 more weeks where I don't have to introduce myself as the new Mariah Samji. Anybody that knows the infill community really well is very familiar with her. So if I want anybody to get a full understanding of what I do in my job,
right,
I just say I'm the new Mariah, and everybody immediately understands what I do. It just saves me a lot of time to get into the issues.
And so for those of us who don't know, who either aren't from Edmonton or don't know Mariah in the infill community, she was the executive director for a number of years, and great person. Oh, she is on a mat leave right now.
Yep.
And Nicholas has big shoes to fill and has done great so far. Why don't you talk a little bit about your role with IDEA and, your role as the new Mariah, your role as the executive director of IDEA. Expand on that idea a bit.
Sure. So my role for IDEA, as I said, I'm the executive director. Basically what the executive director does in the organization is we're the paid staff person that kind of takes the direction of what the board is trying to do. Strategic plan highlights the advocacy issues that we want to work on, any sort of educational initiative.
Okay, and we're back. Thank you to Shirley, our technical whiz, for sorting that out.
I will say, before I get on to my next question, it looks like we're having some internet connection issues. Might happen again a couple of times. We'll do our best not to let it, but just be warned.
We'll fix it in post.
We are not technical experts, but we'll get there.
You were saying?
I was saying, so IDEA has, when we think of infill development in general, a lot of people immediately go skinny homes, lot splits, things like that. But what more is there to this?
Well, skinny homes and lot splits, they're definitely a great thing. They take that density of 1 and they turn it to 2. And density, I think, is something that really benefits Canadian cities and cities as a general, or as a whole. Mm-hmm. We're trying to find ways in which we can combat urban sprawl and make better use of the infrastructure and the developed areas that we already have in the city. But there's better opportunities for that as well, mm-hmm. or other opportunities, I guess I should say. And some people may know, as part of City of Edmonton City Plan, for example, in their effort to get to 2 million people, the plan is to do 50% of infill development. And to get to that total, or to get to that target of 50%, you need to do a little bit more than just lot splitting and mm-hmm. the semi-detached, the smaller scale.
And that's 50% of all residential?
All development, yeah.
Yeah, that their target is to have that as infill.
Infill specific.
Yep.
And so that's a rise from the initial 25 that was, a couple of years back now.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in order to be able to hit that target, we need to be able to expand kind of our thinking about what infill development looks like.
So let's unpack that a little, because if you're not, someone might see that and say well, why? What does it matter? I mean, I think there's a lot of value, even if you don't have, concern about it, it's a more efficient use of the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. If you are in a new neighborhood, or in any neighborhood, it means, perhaps less cars on the road. Maybe your commute is a bit more efficient too. Mm-hmm. the more new neighborhoods we build, they're inefficient, they're money losers based on the amount of infrastructure long term. There's a lot of net benefits to it, that you can reuse existing infrastructure, existing schools and park space.
Yeah, and we're probably preaching to the choir right now to some
Based
degree.
on
But
people walking.
yeah,
Yes.
a lot of our older neighborhoods have seen population decreases through time, and I mean, this is a way of tackling that challenge.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like some of the, and that's something that we tend to communicate to people a lot. Like we like to do a lot of external education where we do community engagement, and we tend to push those specific points. It improves infrastructure in your neighborhood. As someone like myself, I don't actually drive. I rely heavily on alternative modes of transportation, and I live in Strathcona, and because of the infills that we see in that neighborhood and the increased density that's been happening in a neighborhood like that, we have the opportunity to have access to better transit. It also keeps property taxes down too, because you've got a larger density of population that's contributing to what the property taxes are in the neighborhood.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into some of the things we wanted to talk about here. You'd mentioned IDEA every year has a strategic plan and kind of a vision for where it's going and what it's looking to achieve. What is going on for 2023?
Well, 2023 is kind of an interesting year. It's our 10-year anniversary. So there's a lot of celebration that's kind of featured into our strategic plan as well. But more specifically, we're really looking at expanding as an organization. One thing that we noted this past year and coming into this year is our membership has really increased. Last time I counted, I think we have about 213 members in IDEA, which is quite significant considering kind of where we started.
And that's companies, that's individuals, that's community organizations.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a mix of industry. So with the organization growing in numbers, that allows us to be able to reach more people and be able to do more as an organization with the people that we connect with. But with that also comes the need for more resources within. So this year is very much about fundraising. So we have a number of fundraising initiatives that are kind of intertwined with the events that we're going to be doing this year.
Cool.
Great, and we'll have a plug for some of that at the end. Shirley, why don't we throw that up and take a look here just to see this is... And speaking of, if people want to contribute, they can QR code and scan
exactly.
right there.
I made it very easy for you.
But 3 in 2023, I like it. It's catchy. Annual revenue threefold in 2023. Good. I like the ambition. And increase to 3 permanent staff. So do more with more hands.
Yeah, that's the big thing. So right now, there's myself, and that's usually what it's been, is to be just the executive director.
Yeah.
We took a chance with some surplus revenue and hired on a permanent full-time marketing and communications, marketing and events coordinator. Right. And then eventually we want to hire a policy coordinator, which is going to allow us to do a lot more advocacy work.
And I know, having sat on the policy committee for, I don't know, since IDEA started or something like that, some resources there would be helpful to it's all been volunteer work to really push it forward, and just having a dedicated staff member who has the time, who's not thinking about events, who's not, oh, there goes my pen, but doing all the other things that an executive director has to do, being able to focus on, diving into policy, diving into how do we actually make change would be awesome.
So, and this is a transition maybe to our next point. Policy is obviously a big part of IDEA.
Absolutely.
And impact on policy as policy changes, bylaws, they are living documents in the city of Edmonton. And as our ambitions grow and development ambitions grow, that policy needs to change too. Why don't you tell us about one of the policies directions that IDEA is working on right now, the creation of a Municipal Development Corporation?
Yeah, this is something we're really excited about because I think that, we as an organization believe that it will really change the way the city of Edmonton thinks about development. Okay. So there's going to be an opportunity in April 14th where a report is being presented to Executive Committee that discusses the advantages and the disadvantages to having a municipal development corporation. So to kind of give a little bit more insight into that, we're talking about the development or redevelopment of some of these large site projects such as Blatchford, Exhibition Lands, Rossdale River Crossing.
So city-owned lands.
City-owned lands, specifically. What we as an organization coming together and kind of looking at it, and the feedback that we've heard from our membership has been pretty much across the board. Enterprise lands, okay, the city kind of has a system for that. There's a development mechanism that works, and there's some positive outcomes tied to that. But the same can't really be said about Blatchford. The same can't really be said about the trajectory for the exhibition lands. And Rossdale, it's in a study stage still. So we really think that if we were to shift to a municipal development corporation and have kind of that arm's length separation, that we might be able to get on track with some of those particular development projects.
And so it's an interesting concept, because I mean there's great professionals working on projects in Blatchford and some of the others, but it's more a structural change as to how the city operates with regards to the significant amount of lands that they own within the city. So how does that work in a functional perspective? Like, what does a municipal development corporation actually do? And why is that different?
So like it would be a subsidiary that is solely owned by the city of Edmonton, and essentially how it would work is there would be a board of governance that would be work off of a direct mandate of doing timely, efficient development in accordance to market. Like, it's very sensitive to market, and that's an important aspect. But what we really think that it'll allow is the city of Edmonton has a lot of branches that it is constantly having to connect with and engage with, and sometimes that can really it makes it difficult to have a focused mandate all the time, and it also makes it difficult to be nimble. And anybody that works in development, anybody that is connected to that industry, knows that you have to be nimble, you have to be agile, you sometimes have to change your perspective, and sometimes that's difficult to do if it's the city that's actually developing the land.
So examples that come to mind, there's Toronto Waterfront is a good one, Municipal Development Corp. There is East Village in Calgary that is run by, and the name is escaping me right now,
by the
Calgary Municipal
Development Corporation.
I'm pretty sure CMDC.
So tell me a bit about that. There's examples of other Canadian cities where they've done this.
Yes.
Talk a bit about how it's worked, and I guess University of Alberta Property Trust is a new one with university lands.
Yeah, it pretty much like how it works is it's a arm's length board that is doing the development. That's made of professionals that work in the development industry. And very much like if you have any sort of background knowledge of how UAPT runs its board, it would be very, very similar to that. So you can definitely draw from internal examples. You don't just have to look to Calgary or look to other cities. But overall, like, it has been very successful. Like, if you look at the East Village project that did happen in Calgary, we have some very beautiful projects or beautiful developments that have come out of it. So I think that there's a lot of promise.
I love the idea. I mean, this has been in front of council once or twice before with previous councils, and it's kind of stalled. I think of Rossdale lands, just south of downtown, and there's always developers inquiring about it, and it seems it's perpetually stuck in these city departments and studies.
And we can speak to like part of the reason for that. I mean, naturally the city is thinking, well, we want to do this right. These are important lands to us. So we want to hit all these different objectives. Now, when you are able to, through something like a municipal development corporation, focus attention on more clear objectives that aren't necessarily constantly changing as new trends in policy, new trends in planning come up, theoretically you can actually start to execute some of it as opposed to kind of sitting in the pre-planning phase for a long time.
Yeah, and I think another really important thing to point out is that by transferring these lands to an MDC, that doesn't like take the city of Edmonton out of the equation.
Absolutely.
They're still leading the initiative. They're still giving direction.
Yeah, so like council would set that direction.
Council is setting that direction. It's not a group of people that have a different mandate in mind that's doing these developments. It's still coming out of the city.
So I guess, and this isn't a criticism towards the city, but there's a lot of different planning initiatives, and it feels like, let's look at this large piece of land and they'll do a plan for it or a study, and then they move on to a next. But the execution is obviously where we have a bit of an issue. And so if they, that is city involvement, they could set the mandate, the planning, the direction, and then pass it off to the MPC
industry
for execution.
Yeah, with a better understanding of kind of the current market, where things are going, what is going to ultimately sell, be able to get you financing if that's necessary, whatever that may be. It just brings it to a more realistic place, I think, while still achieving similar goals.
Yeah, and realistically, like, I think that projects like exhibition lands, for example, in Rossdale would really benefit from kind of that process. It's really a time question above anything else.
Yeah.
We want to be able to engage at the city level, figure out what the direction is, and then move it on to the MDC for execution.
Cool.
Something like Blatchford is a little different. We're kind of the perspective, as an organization, the feedback we've been given and the feedback that we're giving council is that plan maybe needs to be completely revisited and started from scratch. But we think that under an MDC, it'll allow us to do it in a more nimble way.
So what is some of the feedback from industry? Because I remember, there's been, every time this has come up, I've heard some industry partners and larger developers say, sure, that just sounds also like more bureaucracy. Just sell the land to us private developers and we'll develop it instead.
Well, I would say like we've definitely had that messaging before.
Okay.
But I think that in the end, when you have something like Blatchford, for example, there are other questions that need to be thought of.
Okay.
So from like an affordable housing perspective,
Sure.
There's a lot of potential to take a place like Blatchford and create the opportunity for real affordable housing and be sensitive to the initiatives that have been put forth by the city of Edmonton to work towards those goals. So like each neighborhood, for example, I think is supposed to have somewhere between 16 and 21% affordable housing as part of like the development in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's an initiative that the MDC could take and actually execute upon.
Okay.
Interesting. Let's move along. So thinking a little bit about some of the trends that are happening in infill, we talked a little bit about where this started with lot splits and skinny homes and duplexes and whatnot, and now we're seeing maybe more of a growth in multifamily, in townhouse development, and
more diversity.
Diversity. So for IDEA, how is IDEA supporting some of these changes? What's kind of next as we move forward?
Well, as an organization, advocacy is a big thing for us. So we engage with city initiatives as much as we can, and the new zoning bylaw is something that we've been engaging with since its fruition, since the city said this is what they were going to do. And we're very excited with what has come out of that engagement. We think that when the new zoning bylaw gets implemented in 2024, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for diverse kinds of development. I think mixed use development is something that's going to expand or even explode. Obviously, when we think of mixed use, a lot of the time we think of those kind of developments working particularly well along nodes and corridors. But one thing that I keep bringing up to community members and to industry partners is, there's this neighborhood mixed use zone that's being introduced as part of the zoning bylaw. And that's really interesting. We're talking about mixed use developments that exist in residential neighborhoods. And we're actually seeing a lot of positive feedback about that from neighborhoods. They're like, the idea of a cafe with 16 units above it, that works in my neighborhood. I see that vision. Sure. I'd like to go to a cafe and not have to go all the way to White Avenue or go to 124th to get that.
And that's awesome. I mean, that's been a passion of mine to support things like that for a long time. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's about opening opportunity.
Yeah.
It's not saying that that's going to be able to happen everywhere.
No.
At the end of the day, you need the market to work out. You need how are you going to build that pro forma out for a product like that, and how are you going to get finance for these are risky projects at the end of the day. But where I see IDEA's role is really in facilitating the opportunity that probably doesn't exist today.
Yeah, definitely. And like another thing that I think is really unique to Edmonton, is we have like a really large trend in backyard housing too, more than I would say in other cities. If you were really to break down the stats, and I think that's come from key people that have really worked towards advocating for that kind of housing.
Councillor Salvador.
Yes, Councillor Salvador, definitely.
Yeah.
But no, it's really exciting because I think like one thing that we'll see under the new zoning bylaw is like the idea to actually condominiumize garden suites. So with the definition of what a garden suite is with backyard housing, it lets you like come up with these projects that are very different than what could have ever been done in the past. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, those are questions that have come up time and again from clients, from people looking to do garden suites. How do I basically transfer ownership to somebody else? And you know, the city had a flag lot pilot a while back, and things like that, but they've never really been able to grasp onto something.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, these are the kind of opportunities that when we're saying diversity and housing choice, the ability to do gentle density, like quietly add to these communities, great opportunity, and gives people easier access into the ownership market than they've had in the past.
And I see a little winking face there on our comments from Yasushi. So Yasushi is a big advocate for this diversity of housing typology, you know, creative small micro suites, things like that. So
Green Violin.
Yeah, Green Violin, absolutely. Google it, check it out. This opens it up. I've heard some criticism, and I don't want to pile on the criticism, but that, you know, the ambition for the new zoning bylaw started here. You know, we were here, and really it's only moved it a little. There's been a lot of compromises that kind of water it down from where they started in terms of ambition. Can you think of things specifically that you would like to see as this, knowing it's a living document and will continue to evolve, or that you've heard from, I guess, the industry, of ways we can continue to push that transition forward?
Well, I think it's mostly, that's a hard question to answer, but what I would say is I just think it's very important that all of the statutory documents that kind of come out of the city that tie to planning, they really need to go back to city plan, because I think there's something about city plan that is really on track for the vision of development. It's sensitive to like what we're trying to do for development. And yeah, it's a broader document in terms of what it's discussing, but it does really set the vision, and that's the purpose of that document.
Very good.
So what we really want to be able to see from it is we want to see that the other initiatives that are coming out of that are kind of following that mindset. And we feel that with district planning and with the zoning bylaw right now, zoning bylaw is at a place where we can sort of see the vision, and it has enough flexibility in it too, that it's not going to be a document that's just, okay, 2024, it's released, February of 2024, this amendment, this amendment, this amendment, this amendment. There's the ability to be able for it to grow in a way that is going to be good for the city. We're hoping, I think district plans still have a way to go with that, but I'm hoping that we can get there with that too and have it be in line with what city plan is pushing.
Ultimately you need alignment between all of your policy going all the way up to city plan for it to be effective. That's great. Super interesting. I had one example I wanted to bring up about something IDEA is starting to advocate for, which is improvement to how we handle semi-underground disposal systems. So what is going on here?
Yeah, this is a really exciting one. This was brought to us by a new member, and that deals specifically with waste servicing, and they kind of, part of their bread and butter is the idea of offering semi-underground disposal systems as a way of performing waste services, and they work like all the way across Canada. They're not just Edmonton specific. But what's really interesting is if you have like a city like Calgary, for example, you have different options. So if you have a condominium, you can set up your waste servicing through kind of the traditional manner of having the front load dumpster, or the dumpster that's accessed through like a front load truck. But you also have the option of using mollucks and silos, which are these types of underground services that are accessed through a crane. Like that's how the servicing is done.
Bag
Exactly. And the solutions that come out of that, there's a lot of really positive solutions. First of all, they're more aesthetically pleasing. The access to the disposal units themselves is limited, so you're not having people go into it. But also the access options for removing the waste are much broader. Like you have different opportunities, and it allows you to kind of conceptualize your projects differently. You don't have to worry about access for waste removal. And with the diversity of waste services happening in Edmonton, like the idea that we've got our compost, we've got our garbage, or not garbage, but our waste, and then we have our recycling. There's so many things to keep in mind that this would offer a lot of solutions.
So really interesting, because right now in Edmonton, I mean, everybody who's in Edmonton has seen these, but you've seen these on commercial properties.
Exactly.
Or you've seen these on mixed-use properties, but only for the commercial side. It hasn't been possible for residential.
So residential right now, your waste removal, and why this is important for development, your waste removal options are only city waste
standard city waste,
and not even private.
Exactly.
So what it means for your development project is that you have to, as you go in for your development permit and everything, you got your mixed use building, whatever, or your residential, it has to be designed in a way that these city trucks can access, and it it can change everything.
Yep,
absolutely.
And it means access, or it could mean less units, or everything else, or impact your commercial on the main floor.
Yep.
So if you can have one, private pickup for residential, for multifamily, and two, different typologies of waste removal, you could have better projects that are better from a pedestrian perspective, interaction, the ones that perform better, more efficient.
No, even if it's not private though, even if the municipality and their providers of these services are able to get on board with and demonstrate that they can provide this type of pickup service, you're already that much closer to
and that's the interesting thing. Like, we know that there's a demand for it, and that's what that's why IDEA is so great, is because we can reach out to the different players in this issue. So we've talked to waste servicing companies like WM, for example, and we know that there's an interest in this, and that they would be interested in bidding on contracts like this. So it's not like there's this fear that, okay, if we offer this alternative option, are we going to have the contracts in place to actually service the properties? It's there, and there's already the mechanism there too with the commercial side. So it's not like we're having to conceive a whole new process either. Everything's laid out. It's just making it possible.
So the one last point I'll make on that is just from an efficiency perspective, infill is all about efficiencies, and when we build up instead of out, we're being more efficient. For example, this is an efficiency gain, like a small efficiency gain that is the type of thing that can actually have a significant impact on how we treat alleyways, for example, how we think about the widths and the turning radius, because we have cranes now that can pick garbage up in these situations. And so there's just these micro changes that we can make that sound like not really a big deal, but ultimately help somebody achieve a really great infill development project on their site.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I think we could keep talking all day about this, and we hope that you guys have enjoyed it so far. I am going to give the opportunity for Nicholas. Why don't you give a plug about what is upcoming for IDEA, and how can more people be involved in IDEA?
We're so excited. We have so many events that are coming up this year. One of the ones that's coming up next month that we definitely want to invite the entire community out, whether you're industry or whether you're a community member that's interested about infill, is we have our annual infill tour. That's happening on Friday, April 28th. And this year it's going to be really cool. We're showing 7 infill projects in Edmonton. The projects are a diverse mix of residential, mixed use, and commercial properties.
Cool.
There is an exciting networking event that's going to be happening after at the Strathcona Hotel on White Avenue. So it's going to be a really cool event. Basically, you get a guided tour of each of these properties and get to check them out, hear more about them, and sort of hear about what infill actually is. So yeah, that's Friday, April 28th.
Awesome.
You can get your tickets on Eventbrite. and a link to the tickets are on our website.
And I feel like it's been a while since Ideas hosted one of these. Hey?
Yeah, COVID made it
Yeah.
a little difficult to do, but it was very successful when we did it in the past.
Awesome. Well, we will be there.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming out, Nicholas. This has been fun. We'll try to do it again. Oh, Raymond, do you have something else to add here?
I think you had one other thing you
Oh,
wanted to
Yeah,
plug
we
here.
wanted to
One
let you
more
know
plug.
about one more
Yeah.
thing. As I said in the beginning, it's our 10-year anniversary,
Ooh.
and we're pretty excited about that. And we're doing a big anniversary gala this year, June 23rd. It's going to be great. It's this cool cocktail party. It definitely fits the idea vibe. So not a sit down, not stuffy. There's the chance to really meet everybody, get to know and learn a lot about the Infill community and celebrate some of the work that's been done. So we really encourage you to come out on June 23rd.
Well, we'll provide some links for that in our description here.
Yeah.
I will say it again. Thanks for joining us. This is
Yes,
fun.
thank you.
This is our industry stuff we're connected to on a daily basis, so it's fun to chat about this. We hope
Yeah.
you guys have enjoyed this as well. And I'll do another plug. It is good to be involved in IDEA, be a member, join. You learn lots. You get to share and meet lots of people. It's a great organization to be a part of, so we can't say nothing but good things about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you all in a couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll have another exciting guest on. So thanks so much, Nicholas.
Yeah. Okay,
Thanks for
we'll see you
having
guys later.
Great.